Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, March 13th, 2025, and I am a logical lefty. Welcome to my live stream. We're gonna have some stories here. We're gonna talk about the current events, of course. I'm gonna go through the breakdowns of the stories that we have today. But first, I want to kind of open it up with some breaking news. A judge has just ordered thousands of federal workers that were fired due to their probationary status to be reinstated, calling the administration's justification for firing them a quote unquote sham, which is 100% true. Remember, they were talking about how these workers, these probationary workers, they were just not good workers. They were, what is it, lazy or whatever justification they could come up with in order to get rid of them. They had performance issues, performance problems, of which I'm sure Musk or Trump both might have some personal experience with. So they got rid of these workers, firing them because the only reason you can actually get rid of them is if they really do have performance issues, right? If they're not doing their job correctly, or if they're not doing their job well. But a lot of these workers, the vast majority of them were perfectly good workers. They were fine. The only reason that they were on their probationary status is because they would like move departments, and there's a mandatory 1 to 2 year, placement in the probationary status before you're able to get those workplace protections. So they absolutely lied about it. They got caught out on that lie. And this judge says, all right, well, you did lie about it. This was an absolute sham. You are not allowed to fire these workers. You must reinstate them 100% right now. So that's great. Now, whether or not they're actually going to come back to work is another thing, right? Because can you really trust that you're actually going to still have a job later, or are they going to find some other bullshit excuse to try to fire you? That is kind of the problem that we're facing here with the Trump administration and with Elon Musk and his BS firings. It turns out that no, it doesn't work like one of Musk's companies where, remember, he threw fits about like, oh, the algorithm is not placing me in the top results. I'm not getting as much engagement on my posts as I want. You're fired. Wait, he's a baby. Elon Musk is a man baby. Okay, obviously you must fix it so that I have more engagement on my posts. I don't have enough engagement. Do something about it. Do something about it. Fix it. Make me more popular. And if they can't do it, they get fired. So that's what it's like working for Elon Musk. And thankfully, the government doesn't quite work that way. There are actually more protections for federal workers than there are in the private sector, which is why, of course, Republicans hate the public sector so much and want to dismantle unions and worker protections and all that stuff. And thankfully, they haven't been quite able to at this point. But given enough time, they're certainly going to try. So there is some good news there to start out the day, that these people are able to get their jobs back. And by the way, that will also stop the hampering of these of what a lot of these agencies actually do, the critical work, especially in agencies like the Social Security Administration, which is very, very important, which is something that Elon Musk has been targeting and eyeing, trying to destroy from within, which again will harm a great many people. So I'm glad that judges are trying to put a stop to this, and hopefully that will continue. Rule of law will ultimately prevail. So I get a little bit of hopium today, just a little bit though. Okay. That said, we've got more embarrassing failures of the Trump administration. In fact, we have one of his signature I should say, one of his signature promises that he has tried to make, and that has to do with Guantanamo Bay. We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes here, because there's some embarrassing for them developments on that. We have also Republican perverts. Okay, I mean, there's no other way to describe that. We got West Virginia voting to do child genital inspections. And then, of course, we also have an ex-Trump advisor getting, indicted for sex crimes. So that's a disaster. And then RFK Jr., of course, dealing with the measles outbreak in Texas. And then we actually have a Democrat, another person, fighting back against the Trump administration by targeting Republicans in town halls. So that is awesome. No, not pre-recorded. We're doing it live. Okay, we're going to do it live.
We'll do it live.
Now, either this is a excellent pre-record, and I expected that question, or we're actually live. Don't know. See, maybe I thought of this ahead of time. You see, you don't know. You don't know. No, it's live. It's live. It's live. All right. Anyway, I don't know. Send me a super chat and prove that we're live. Okay. Anyway, I know I'm insane. You have to be a little bit insane to be in this business. Trust me. A little crazy. A little nuts.
Jewish space lasers.
Okay. Anyway, I know there is a lot of chaos going on here. In the control room. Somebody get a hammer. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna find that.
Who's got a hammer?
There you go.
There's insanity in the control room.
Okay. Anyway, I know I'm gonna Hey, thank you, Zeke the Beast, for the $5 super chat. You're awesome. So definitely appreciate that. All right, with that, why don't we go to actual stories here and me not just messing around with my soundboard. Even though I could probably do that for an hour and just riff, I actually do want to get some stories done. So why don't we go to it? Look at me being professional and all. Professional like. Okay. I'm in a weird mood today. It's a Thursday. It's been a long week. Hell, it's been a long 2 months. Okay? And yeah. There you go. All right. Now we'll start out with Gitmo. It appears that President Donald Trump's plan to hold migrants at the infamous torture facility in Cuba has run into some problems. Big problems. Tremendous problems. The best problems. The greatest problems. As a result, of course, all of the migrants that were being held at Guantanamo Bay have been relocated back to the United States. Oops. Okay.
Whoopsie.
So, wait, hold on. I thought the plan from Trump was to hold up to 30,000 migrants as part of his mass deportation plan. Well, it turns out that, like a lot of his plans, it wasn't going to work out. Because it was stupid. Because it was a very dumb plan. Stupid! Now, officials told the New York Times that the 40 men who remained in detention at the facility, which, by the way, like, there's no joke that being on Guantanamo Bay is horrible. It is an infamous torture facility, as I mentioned before. So it's bad to be there, and I'm glad that no one is there anymore, okay? At least none of the migrants, they didn't do anything wrong. They're migrants. They came into the United States. Most of them have no no criminal history at all. Okay, so now the 40 men who remained in detention were flown to ICE facilities in Louisiana on Tuesday. Now, as I mentioned before, there's not enough room to house the migrants that are currently being in detention. See, deportations are down, but detentions are up. And so they are holding more people, and they're arresting more people who do not have criminal histories. And so they got to put them somewhere. So they are still putting people in these prisons. Okay. Now, that said, sources told Voice of America that the men, 23 of them, are deemed high threat. And I don't necessarily believe that. But okay, sure. They were flown to the U.S. on non-military aircraft under the direction of ICE. The high threat individuals were kept in the base's military detention facility, while 17 others were held at the so-called Migrant Operations Center. The Washington Post reported the flight conducted under the banner of ICE Air, okay, hilarious, was less costly than the 17 military flights the Trump administration had previously used to transport migrants to and from Guantanamo, and marked the second clearing of the newly prepared migrant detention facility in a matter of weeks. Last month, the administration cleared out 177 Venezuelan migrants who were being held there by repatriating them to their home government, while another group of 48 migrants were sent to Louisiana a couple of weeks ago. So, an official told ABC News the number of migrants set to be temporarily held at the Cuban naval base never topped more than the low hundreds. Yeah. Officials also confirmed that the 195 tents capable of housing 500 migrants that were set up as part of the Operations Center didn't meet ICE standards. I didn't realize ICE actually had standards. But apparently, yes, these were lacking in air conditioning and other amenities, and I'm pretty sure that they were probably lacking in more than that. Okay. Now, the Pentagon and DHS, ABC News reported, are in discussions about whether to continue using the base. Yeah. Whoops. It turns out that using Gitmo was a terrible idea. Who could have known? Except for, everyone in actual reality. Everyone who pays attention to the reality. We all knew that this was a terrible and expensive idea that was destined to fail. And I'll get to why exactly it failed. But first, I want to note that Jennifer Griffin, the chief national security correspondent for Fox News, yes, I'm quoting Fox News here, all right, wrote in a social media post that with Guantanamo emptied of migrants, the Trump administration's effort to transform the facility appears at best to have been an expensive photo op. And that really does sum up a lot of the Trump administration's dumb, grandiose plans, okay, which already cost money, and it's set to cost even more. The Trump administration is set to face multiple legal challenges to its use of Guantanamo. A D.C. federal court is scheduled to hear arguments on Friday in a case brought by the American Civil Liberties Union over the lack of legal access to migrants at the base. It will also hear arguments in a separate ACLU case that is asking the court to block the transfer of 10 migrants held in the U.S. to Guantanamo. Those cases, of course, they're going to cost money to litigate. Now, the ACLU doing a lot of work, okay? They're working overtime in order to keep track of all the civil rights abuses of the Trump administration and then challenging them in court. See, I give props to that, okay? And so, yeah, this is just something that is going to continue to cost the administration more money than they would have saved, right? Because remember the whole idea of, oh, no, we have to, stop immigration because they're costing us so much money, which, of course, it never really was true. It's never about the money. It was always about upholding white supremacy and kicking out anyone who is brown. That's what it's always been about. Okay. But, again, it's going to cost way, way more money than would have ever been potentially saved. Now, I want, though, to get to the why this whole idea was dumb to begin with. For one, this is an infamous torture site. Never should have existed in the first place. Should have been shut down during the Obama administration. I remember calling on President Barack Obama at the time. Shut down Guantanamo. There is literal torture going on there. You've got to stop it. And they didn't. And then Trump gets into office and then continues it. And then Biden had a chance to shut it down. He didn't. And now we've got Trump again. And they're trying to justify the continued existence of this horrific torture prison. Okay, and they tried to use it for migrants, people who didn't do anything, getting shipped to one of the worst places in the world. Horrific, absolutely horrific. Okay, that said, secondly, the plan to house 30,000 migrants that they say, oh, they're the worst of the worst. Oh, look at that. What terrible people. We got the rapists. We got the criminals. Well, that falls apart because the vast majority of migrants that are in custody right now have not done anything criminal. They don't have criminal records. About half of them. There just isn't 30,000 criminal migrants in this country. All of that was based on white supremacist lies. That's it. No, they're not eating the dogs. They're not eating the cats. Okay? They're not taking over apartment complexes. They're not being dumped here from prisons or insane asylums, okay? If you think that, if you really do believe that, maybe you belong in an insane asylum. Because look, what you're thinking of is, when it comes to criminals, you're thinking of Republican voters. Like the 1,600 Capitol rioters who were charged with other crimes. So, some of them were charged with other crimes. Like, I don't know, child sexual abuse. Those are the real criminals, okay? That were set free by Donald Trump and are now on our streets. Now, I'm not saying all of them are violent criminals, by the way. And there are some that have spoken out and are like, no, I did the crime. I did the time. But there are some of them for sure that are still dangerous and have gotten arrested since then. All right. So these are your homegrown criminals. Speaking of homegrown criminals, the one who had all this happen, made all this happen, just happens to be the most powerful man in the country. Okay. That's a disaster. Let's move on to Republican predators. Speaking of criminals, and what is yet another example of projection, an ex-Trump advisor and megachurch pastor, Robert Morris, has been indicted for sex crimes against a child. Morris, the Dallas area megachurch pastor who resigned last year amid sexual abuse allegations, has been indicted in Oklahoma for child sex crimes that date back to the 1980s. To which I say, of course he did. Of course. Now, this is a former spiritual advisor to President Donald Trump and Gateway, which is one of the largest megachurches. Well, this guy has been particularly active in Republican politics. In 2020, for example, Trump held a roundtable on the transition to greatness. there that was attended by then U.S. Attorney General William Barr and other prominent Republicans. Morris faces 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child, the Oklahoma Attorney General's office said in a Wednesday evening press release. So I'm actually kind of surprised that Oklahoma, of all places, is actually going after predators. Wow. Hey, good, great. Now, the indictment comes less than a year after Morris resigned from Gateway Church in South Lake after an adult woman, Cindy Clemishire, said Morris repeatedly sexually assaulted her while she was a child in Oklahoma in the 1980s. Morris, at the time, was working as a traveling preacher. Just everybody watch out for them traveling preachers, man. In a Wednesday text message, Clemishire said that through an attorney that she was grateful for these indictments. After almost 43 years, the law has finally caught up with Robert Morris for the horrific crimes he committed against me as a child. Now it is time for the legal system to hold him accountable. My family and I are deeply grateful to the authorities who've worked tirelessly to make this day possible and remain hopeful that justice will ultimately prevail. Now, one of the things that Oklahoma has apparently done is made it so that you can go after people for sex crimes, even when they happened in the 1980s. So now, that said, not only did Morris allegedly assault this little girl when she was like 12, okay, he also had at one point attempted to bribe her into silence. According to a leaked phone transcript from 2005, Morris, who had confessed to the sexual assault, told the victim to, quote, put a price on it. The transcript allegedly showed that Clemishire was like, all right, give me $2 million. Morris then hung up the phone. Clemishire also says she had filed a civil lawsuit against Morris that same year, but attorneys claimed that she was responsible because she was being flirtatious. Yes, that's right. Oh, you were being too flirtatious. She was 12. Okay. And had offered her $25,000 to sign an NDA, which she had of course, had refused. In 2007, Clemishire's attorney sent a letter to Morris requesting reimbursement for therapy she had undergone because of the abuse and attempted to settle the civil claim. Morris would only agree to a settlement if Clemishire would sign an NDA. Shut up, shut up, shut up, is his whole thing. No, you shut up, shut up, shut up. I'm going to sign your rights away. Don't say anything. Don't speak. Don't tell anybody what I did. I mean, that just really shows that he was trying to cover up this whole thing. Okay? And that's it. Now, she, of course, refused and walked away from that settlement. Now, it would unfortunately take almost 20 more years for this to catch up to Morris. And I am wondering, though, if there were maybe more victims. I mean, I don't know for sure. But a lot of predators don't just start with one. Okay? Now, her parents knew about that abuse after she had told them. It's when she was 16, so the abuse had gone on for several years. And her father was like, get out of the ministry or I'm going to the authorities. Stop being a pastor. He did, and then came back 2 years later. Because, of course, right? Hey, man, it's hard to walk away from that megachurch money, as well as easy access to possible victims. That's why I'm wondering whether or not there are more victims that are waiting to come out. I don't know. That said, Clemishire is not the only victim of the Texas megachurch scandals. At least a dozen Dallas area churches or pastors have been accused of committing or concealing sexual misconduct. Morris was just one of the most high profile due to his political activities. In fact, back in 2017, Morris was tapped by Governor Greg Abbott to help support his bathroom bill. You know, the transgender ban. So stopping trans people from using their preferred bathroom. So the argument here is a bit ironic, saying that, oh, if we allow trans people into the bathroom, then we're endangering children. Well, he would know about endangering children because that's what he did, allegedly. Okay. The irony here. The irony. Okay. Now, along with Abbott, by the way, Morris had a relationship with President Donald Trump, which I think personally had a lot to do with predators sticking together, because Trump has his own issues with sexual abuse. Okay. Now, during Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, Morris was among 3 other Dallas area religious leaders serving on Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board. And in 2021, Morris was part of an effort to mobilize conservatives and evangelicals ahead of Trump's 2024 presidential bid. So let me just stop there for a second. I've heard this word, evangelicals, okay, which kind of explains these kinds of people, okay, because they're obsessed. And we can see maybe one of the reasons why they're obsessed with kids' genitals. Just saying. Look, this guy, speaking of genitals, is balls deep in Republican politics. For years, Morris and Gateway would show slates of local school board candidates on the church's massive screens in the lead up to elections. It's doing electioneering, okay? In fact, he said, many of you see what Satan... Yes, that's right. Talking about the devil here.
It's the devil, okay?
Many of you see what Satan has been trying to do, even in our school systems. Morris told some of the church's roughly 25,000 members in 2023 before showing a list of Republican candidates. You know what? Talk about the evil in the schools, right? No, you're the evil in the schools. You're going around and abusing school children, okay? Allegedly. And then having your lawyers blame the victims here, your victims, for being too flirtatious. That's so incredibly disgusting. It's gross. And of course, you know, what he did with promoting Republican candidates in the churches, by the way, also violates the prohibition on churches being involved in politics. Any church that does this should lose their tax-exempt status. You want to play? Pay to play, all right? Start paying your taxes. Look, at the end of the day, though, this is not at all surprising. Here we have yet another white evangelical anti-LGBTQ pastor that was busted preying on children. Not only that, but I have to say this too. Not a drag queen. Another case of not a drag queen. How many times do I have to point out that it's right-wing evangelical pastors and politicians that are more of a threat to your children than drag queens and trans people? In fact, I think the more people talk about these supposed threats from trans people, how much they pose, how the threat they pose to the little kids. No, the more likely that those people are hiding something real dark. Okay. Most white churches did endorse Trump, unfortunately. Predators stick together. All right. We're not done with Republican perverts. Oh, no. Republicans have finally gone and done it, passing a bill allowing for the inspection of children's genitals. That's right. The Republican Party in West Virginia recently passed a bill that would allow healthcare providers to visually or physically examine a minor child for the purpose of identifying their biological sex. And they can do this without the consent of the child's parent, guardian, or custodian. What happened to parents' rights? What happened? I thought the whole party of, parental rights, we care so much about parental rights. Why are they allowing this to happen without the consent of parents What? Here it is. The thing that we have been warning about has finally happened. They have used the anti-trans panic to allow people to do literal genital inspections on children. The bill, SB 456, would define sex based on whether a person, quote, produces eggs or sperm. It also says that gender-segregated spaces like locker rooms and restrooms are to be used based on a person's sex assigned at birth. It also says that all intersex people are either male or female. No, they're intersex. By definition, they are neither. They're not in the binary. So, in fact, according to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, they do not fit the typical binary notions of male or female bodies. They're just erasing intersex people, which are already a very tiny minority, okay, that gets singled out and gets discriminated against and gets altered in a lot of cases without their consent. It's estimated that noticeable intersex characteristics appear in at least 1 out of 1,500 to 1 out of 2,000 live births. So, I mean, you're talking fractions of a percentage of the population. Now, that said, people are born with subtler forms of anatomy variations, some of which do not show up until later in life. For example, you've got Klinefelter syndrome, 47XXY, Turner syndrome, 45X, and the chromosomal variants of 47XYY and 47XXX. So there's a lot of variations in humanity. And Republicans, the right wing and the gender critical people, are completely ignoring all that and are erasing trans people and are erasing intersex people. Now, of course, these Republicans that these bills, you know, are pushing forward, right? They're claiming that we need to push forward on these, pass these bills. We got to protect the children. We got to protect the women and the girls, especially in sports. Okay, but the thing is, they claim that this is such a pressing issue, but never have any examples of trans people that are endangering women and girls or just making it unfair for women and girls in sports. I mean, look, back in 2021, West Virginia signed a trans ban. Okay, so no trans people in sports, right? And Stephanie Ruhle, remember, this was a fantastic interview with then Governor Jim Justice, who, you know, she basically was like, what is this? This is not necessary. Can you give me a single example of this? And here's some of that.
Can you name one example of a transgender child trying to gain an unfair competitive advantage at a school there in West Virginia?
Well, Stephanie, I don't have that experience exactly to myself right now. But I will tell you this.
Not yourself, your state, sir. Can you give me one example of a transgender child trying to get an unfair advantage? Just one in your state. You signed a bill about it.
No, I can't really tell you one, but I can tell you this, Stephanie. I'm a coach. We all know what an absolute advantage boys would have playing against girls.
But, sir, you have no examples of this happening. Why would you take your time to do this? Let's talk about other things that I can give you examples of in your state. According to U.S. News and World Report, West Virginia ranks 45th in education, 47th in healthcare, 48th on the economy, and 50th in infrastructure. If you cannot name one single example for me of a child doing this, why would you make this a priority? I just named 4 things that would seem to me like a much bigger priority.
Well, Stephanie, I didn't make it a priority. It wasn't my bill.
You signed it.
No, Stephanie, listen. I think we only have 12 kids maybe in our state that are transgender type kids. I mean, for crying out loud, Stephanie, I signed hundreds of bills. This is not a priority to me.
Oh, this is not a priority. But, you know, we're just going to pass these bills anyway. We're going to pass these, first we're going to start with the sports bans, and then we're going to go with allowing people to, inspect your genitals. The kids' genitals. Why not? Let's do that. No. No, let's not do that. Now, look, the text states that the all multi-occupancy facilities like restrooms and changing rooms have to be designated as either exclusively for those assigned male at birth or those assigned female at birth. And so, how are they going to check? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Now, the thing is, this is going to, of course, endanger trans children, okay? And it's also going to affect cis people, okay? Cis girls, specifically, that might look a little too masculine. They're going to be the ones that are targeted and singled out. Or maybe they're just going to, target the girls who might be too good at sports. Oh, you must be a man. You must be a boy. Okay, we're gonna have to check that. No, but it gets worse. By the way, it gets worse. Okay, on Monday, the West Virginia House of Delegates approved an amendment from Delegate J.B. Akers to allow a child's treating health care provider to examine a child's genitals without the consent of their parents. The amendment states that only the treating healthcare provider can perform such examinations without the parent's consent. The amendment does not mention adults, and therefore, presumably, they could be forced to undergo such examinations by anyone. And believe it or not, this part was actually an improvement over a previous bill. Yes, it could have been worse. This previous bill would have allowed teachers to perform said inspections. Akers' amendment was the Republican response to one proposed by Delegate Kayla Young, one of the 3 Democrats who actually is in the West Virginia government. This bill would have banned child and adult genital examinations altogether. So there it is. This is the response. Okay. Republicans are officially the party of child genital inspections. Without your consent. Without the consent of parents. I mean, this passed the state Senate 32-1. 32-1. The 3 Democrats in the body, State Senator Michael Wolfell, he voted for the bill. State Senator Joey Garcia voted against it, and State Senator Robert Plymale was not there, just decided not to show up. Weird. And on Friday, the bill passed the House of Delegates in an 87-9 vote. The bill was then passed by both chambers again on Monday, March 7th, with the amendment. It now goes to the governor, Patrick Morrisey, for his signature. So this is what Republicans in West Virginia have been focused on. Not making the things in the state better. No, just going after a very, very tiny minority and legalizing perversion. They should absolutely be ashamed of themselves, but I can guarantee that none of them are. All right. Moving on. Let's go to RFK Jr. As the Texas outbreak of measles spreads across the United States, HHS head Robert F. Kennedy Jr. basically says, you know what? It would be just better if everyone got measles. Now, so far, more than 220 people in the state of Texas have been diagnosed with the infectious virus. California, New York, and Maryland have also reported their own cases. The CDC is now warning healthcare workers and travelers to be vigilant. Now, I recently noted that RFK Jr. had slightly softened the anti-vax stance, but also not really. And that was apparent during a recent interview he had with Fox News host Sean Hannity.
It used to be when you and I were kids, everybody got measles. And the measles gave you lifetime protection against measles infection. The vaccine doesn't do that. The vaccine is effective for some people for life, but many people, it wanes. It used to be a very young kid. You don't want a one-year-old kid getting measles. That's very dangerous. They were protected by breast milk and by maternal immunity. But women who get vaccinated do not provide that level of maternal immunity that the natural measles infection did. So you're now seeing measles hit very, very young kids and hitting older people within whom the vaccine has waned.
So, look, he's putting out anti-vax talking points, okay? So, the reality is the MMR vaccine offers about 93% protection against measles in just a single dose. 97% for 2 doses, according to the CDC. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Now, what's fueling this, though? It turns out lower vaccination rates, thanks to anti-vaxxers. Only 5 of the 223 Texas measles cases and 1 of the 33 in New Mexico said that they received at least 1 dose of the vaccine. Of the Texas cases, 98 were in children ages 5 to 17. So, yeah, anti-vaxxers, way to go. This is your fault. That said, getting to the immunity, right? While it is true that infants are protected from birth against measles by maternal antibodies, if the mother is immune, that immunity begins to go away after about 6 months. So it starts to, speaking of waning immunity, right? This is according to the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. So no, natural immunity is not, in this case, going to be superior, okay? No, vaccines help boost your immunity. And you should get vaccinated. You should get your kids vaccinated. Now, that said, right, although Kennedy is saying, well, you know, yes, it is better to be vaccinated. You probably should do it. He's going to double down on the whole, you know what, but it's freedom. It's your freedom.
I think, you know, I'm a freedom of choice person.
Yeah.
But if people don't want it, they shouldn't be, the government shouldn't force them to do it. There are adverse events from the vaccine. It does cause deaths every year. It causes all the illnesses that measles itself causes, encephalitis and blindness, etc. And so people ought to be able to make that choice for themselves. And what we need to do is give them the best information and encourage them to vaccinate. Yeah. The vaccine does stop the spread of the disease.
So, look, here's the thing. According to the nonprofit organization Encephalitis International, between 1 and 2 of the 1 million children who have had a vaccination will develop encephalitis. So, that's a really low occurrence. That is less than the incidences of all types of encephalitis. Okay? Does it happen? Yes, it does, but it's extremely rare. Extremely rare. You are far more likely to develop it from contracting measles than you are to get it from the vaccine. In fact, the CDC notes that any side effects from the MMR vaccine are usually mild and go away on their own. Look, at the end of the day, it's worse for you to get measles. That's it. That's it. Now, here's the thing. Vaccines were created to avoid getting the measles. Getting the full-blown measles is awful, and in some cases that we've seen, pretty deadly. It's much worse than any side effects that you would get from vaccines. So that said, the takeaway from this interview with RFK Jr. is that if you're a Fox News viewer, and I already feel bad for you because you're at a massive disadvantage in life and everything else, if you're a Fox News viewer and you're on the fence about vaccinating yourself or your kids, and you watched Hannity's interview, well, it's very likely that you would come away from this having been told that measles, it's not really all that bad, it's not really all that dangerous. No. Natural immunity is better. You know, if you acquire it from infection, it's superior to vaccination, and that if you take it, there is a chance that you might become blind or get encephalitis, kill them. What? Now, the thing is, they will believe this, okay? Because RFK Jr. is now the nation's top health official. And what that means is that this outbreak that they are currently fighting but actually not fighting is probably going to get worse. Okay. Anti-vaxxers, man. Disaster. Okay. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is heading back out on the road. Former vice presidential candidate is planning to stop by Republican districts to do some town halls, while Republicans, of course, are hiding from their own voters. On Friday, for example, he'll be in Iowa in a district represented by Representative Zach Nunn. He then is heading to Nebraska for the district represented by Representative Don Bacon. Walz's team is also planning stops in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Ohio within the coming weeks, with more to come. Why? Well, it's because he says that it's time for Democrats to step up and stop hiding. In fact, he told CNN on Wednesday there was just this primal scream of folks recognizing what's going on with the Trump administration, their authoritarian tendencies, and what they viewed was a lack of proper response from their representatives. It was about these Republican representatives recognizing this stuff's really unpopular. He's talking about the town halls, of course. So they're going to quit these town halls. These folks need to be heard. They need to be heard. And to be candid with you, Democratic leadership needs to hear them. Look, I talked about these town halls. I covered them. And there was a lot of anger about Elon Musk and the proposed cuts to Medicaid and the federal workforce. Okay, a lot of people are mad about that. Now, of course, Republicans responded to this with claims of, the paid activists, the paid activists. They say that's what they're just being filled with the what? Who's paying them? Who's paying them? Guaranteed, they're going to blame George Soros. Because, of course, right? Hey, you know what? I'd be a paid activist. Why isn't anybody offering money to go and to these Republican town halls? Nobody asked me. Nobody's reached out. I'd do it. I'm starting to think that maybe these Republicans are lying. Now, look, Walz's plan to go out and do these town halls in Republican districts actually came about after he posted about it on X. So this is a response to Politico, no more town halls. The NRCC chief tells House Republicans. And he says, well, that's a shame. If your Republican representative won't meet with you because their agenda is so unpopular, maybe a Democrat will. Well, maybe I will. If your congressman refuses to meet, I'll come host an event in their district to help local Democrats beat them. Interesting. Okay. Now, he got a lot of responses to this. Obviously, there's the negativity, but there's also a ton of positivity, right? His staff actually received hundreds of invitations from local party leaders and candidates asking him to come, which for some reason, of course, surprised Tim Walz. He said, I always feared that they would become apathetic after this last election and just check out. But they are not doing that. Well, no. Here's the thing. Donald Trump is a threat to the country. Elon Musk is an absolute disaster. His cuts are going to kill people. He's trying to take away food and medical care that people desperately need. All right? That's it. Also, that the party can give massive tax cuts to the rich. That's not what people voted for. And one of the problems with the Democrats is that aside from people like Bernie Sanders and a few others, and now Tim Walz, there's been no one going out there with any alternative. In fact, Walz recently spoke about that during an interview.
Again, there is going to be pain. The richness of a sitting senator like Tommy Tuberville or Elon Musk telling us we're going to have to endure pain. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Again, I think Americans have had it. I hope they've had it. And now we just need to do what we can do to make the case. And look, I own this. We wouldn't be in this mess if we'd have won the election. And we didn't. We have to make sure that Americans know it's not just that Donald Trump is bad, but we're offering them something better. And I think that's what we need to work on.
So I love the ownership that he took. He's like, yeah, I was on the ticket and we lost. And that is an extension of, another segment that I did where Walz was like, yeah, hey, it's kind of my fault. I went out there and we were on the losing side. I take ownership of that and I appreciate that. But what I appreciate even more is saying that, yes, we need to have an alternative to Orange Man bad. Yes, Orange Man bad. So what are we going to do that's better? Now, one of the problems with the Democratic Party is the fact that it takes corporate PAC money. And so it represents a lot of the same moneyed interests as, the ones that fund the Republicans. And so, yeah, they're intentionally weak when fighting Republicans because they can't take these populist economic stances, these populist economic issues, okay? And so now that said, Bernie Sanders is also out there. He's fighting against oligarchy. In fact, he recently went on Pod Save America and said, quote, "It is not just that they want to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut programs for working people. Frankly, that's happened before. You combine that with the power of the oligarchy in general. You combine that with Mr. Musk owning Twitter and able to send out messages to hundreds of millions of people. You combine that with the fact that people like Bezos, the second wealthiest person in the country, fired or got rid of most of his editorial staff and turning it into a right-wing thing." He's talking about the Washington Post specifically, right? Trump is suing major media outlets and is threatening to investigate PBS and NPR. So it's not only the power of money, it's also combined with the movement towards authoritarianism. When Trump unilaterally cuts federal funding that was passed by Congress, that is illegal. That is unconstitutional. When you have the vice president saying, well, in his judgment, the courts don't have a right to stop unconstitutional acts of the president, man, that is authoritarianism. He is now trying to end what the founding fathers was pretty smart about, creating a form of government where there were checks and balances. This is a scary moment. Yeah, Sanders is absolutely correct on that. And where's the rest of the Democratic Party? Don't know. They're about ready to help Republicans pass a continuing resolution to fund the government. But wait, you don't want a government shutdown, do you? I don't know. I'm thinking maybe that's exactly what we need. Look, Republicans are looking to pass a CR that boosts defense spending. I thought they were supposed to be cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. The Pentagon cannot pass an audit. Okay. Not only that, but it's going to boost funding to mass deportation, and while zeroing out funding for homeless shelters, cutting funding for clinics, hospitals, all that stuff, and would actually allow Trump more direct control over this nation's spending, which is taking power away from the House, supposed to have the purse strings, okay? David Dayen over at the American Prospect warned that the bill grants an open invitation to Trump and Elon Musk to continue to ignore Congress and toss out disfavored spending, and noted that it gives the president more leeway to move money around, possibly for his, own use. Okay, it appropriates money for things that Musk has eliminated, meaning that money can operate as a floating slush fund for Trump's own priorities, as long as the courts do not roll back the illegal impoundments. So that's what he's using, by the way, as a mechanism to fund his own things and to take away funding from things that he doesn't like. Okay, and so that's one of the big problems. Now, they did this by adding $8 billion in what is called transfer authority, too, that allows the agency to shift spending to where what they deem to be important. So taking away things that help people, homeless people, people that are, at risk of abuse or have been abused, taking funding away from them and putting it towards deportations. I mean, it's messed up. Democrats really should put a stop to this, even if it does mean you have a government shutdown. Because what they're doing is taking power away from Congress, from the legislature. All right. Now, that said, getting back to Walz, right? Now, he said that his message to people at these town halls is, you see what's going on. It doesn't have to be this way. It don't have to be like this. Well, I'm going to say ways they can mobilize to fight back. Ways that I think are the most effective ways, and I fully expect them to tell me ways that they're looking for. I'm a catalyst to provide them a megaphone to lift up their voice. And I think that's what people are looking for. I understand now my responsibility. I have a little more of a national voice, so I should bring it to them. And I'm going to be basically handing the megaphone to them. Look, I'm glad to see Walz stepping back out, okay? Because right now, the Democratic Party has been kind of like trying to figure out what the hell they're doing. They're supposed to be an opposition, okay, to the Republicans. They're not supposed to help the Republicans. We do not need comity. Okay, we don't need, the spirit of bipartisanship. No, fuck your bipartisanship, okay? We're not going to work with fascists, all right? Screw you. No, we need to fight back. We need to fight back against them. Look, muzzling Tim Walz during the campaign was one of the dumbest things the Democrats could do. That's it. We need more people who can communicate what the Democrats technically should stand for. And of course, what would help is that if the Democratic Party actually did stand for those things against the big money. And so you go out there and you start not only expressing those values, but also living them. That would be great. Instead of allowing Fox News and Republican politicians define you. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for y'all. Thank you for watching here. Let me go back here. There's a Zeke DeBeast, thank you. It says just a small support and appreciation for your channel, Power to the Lefties, Socialists, and Progressives. Hell yeah. Thank you. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Hey, what do you guys think of the possibility of Tim Walz actually running a presidential ticket? Certainly, we're not going to see anybody like Bernie Sanders run, but I mean, it is possible that, yeah, look, if this is a precursor to a 2028 run, I wouldn't be against that. Obviously, there's a little bit of politicking that's probably going on because they are politicians, right? But nonetheless, I wouldn't mind seeing this. So I don't know. Hopefully, there is a place for Tim Walz in the 2028 conversation if he indeed is going to jump in. We'll see. Yeah, balls to the walls. There you go. Walz, AOC, or Crockett. There you go. Walz is my governor, and he can stay put. Fair. I wouldn't want to give that up either. Okay. All right. That said, thank you for joining me. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for watching. Please like and share the stream. Or, hate it. If you want to, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand why people would hate watch something, but okay. Sure, if you want to see different perspectives, that's okay. And if you disagree with that, that's totally fine. But hate watching is something different, though. which doesn't make any sense. But hey, you know, whatever. Do your thing, I guess. That said, I'm going to head out. Thank you all. Please sign up to become a patron or a channel member. Patreon.com/jeffwaldorf. Or, of course, hit the join button below if you want to be a member on YouTube. With that said, let's... I'm just going to wish you all a good day. Have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow.